show, Grizzly, bitch.
What up, mean militia? I mean Joe Grizzly. And when I'm not chasing a satanic slasher across the country to stop him once for all, I'm at the Grizzly Cave, watching a review of movies while, of course, crushing beers. And I am back to bring y'all my review of one of my most anticipated films of the year, Psycho Killer, starring the great Georgina Campbell. The question is, does it live up to the hype? Or is it just another overhyped dud? Let's find out. This is Grizzly Grave Reviews. So Psycho Killer is the story of a serial killer who is traveling across the country, killing mercilessly until one day during a routine traffic stop, he kills the husband of a state trooper. And this in turn begins a campaign in which that state trooper is hunting him across the country in order to bring his reign of terror to an end. So this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. It has everything that I could ever want in a movie. It has a law enforcement officer pursuing a serial killer in this little cat and mouse game. It has a very imposing and intimidating killer with a badass mask. And it was written by the same guy who wrote Seven. So this was a perfect recipe for success. But did it deliver? And after seeing it, I can say that unfortunately, I didn't hate it, but it's definitely going to be one of my most disappointing films of the year. So starting out with the positives, I think the cast in this movie is pretty damn good. Particularly Georgina Campbell. Georgina Campbell at this point is this staple in the horror community, at least in my opinion. I think that she is good in everything that she does. And I feel like that other than Barbarian, this might be the second best role that I've seen her in so far. I think that she is absolutely awesome as Jane Archer in this movie. She does a really good job of showing all of this emotional trauma that she's going through after witnessing her husband being killed in cold blood by this deranged killer. And I love that she understands how to not only show that side where she is traumatized and is so crippled by depression and sorrow over the loss of her husband, but also I love the side of her that is driven, that is going to do whatever it takes to find this guy who took everything from her. You have James Preston Rogers here who plays the satanic slasher, and he is absolutely imposing and intimidating. He is not this regular run-of-the-mill like 5'10", 6 foot tall white male who fits that profile for a serial killer in real life. He is this massive human being who I didn't see how tall he was. I want to say he's around 6'5", and he is every bit of 6'5", and he is massive. He isn't this big, bulky, unbelievably huge like Dave Bautista or The Rock, but he is this lean cut, very, very intimidating serial killer that has this drive that he is going to complete his mission no matter what. And he is brutal in every way, shape, or form that you can be. Not on the same level as like an Art the Clown, but he is that guy that if he wants you dead, you are going to die. And he is going to find a way to do it, whether he wants to do it like very quietly and stealthily, or if he just wants to bust up in your house and just murder you mercilessly with an axe. He does not care. He is there to complete his mission, and he is going to do it, and no one's going to stop him. And then you have the great Malcolm McDowell, and I see a lot of people that really don't like Malcolm McDowell. Some people call it the kiss of death actor. If he's in your movie's bound to flop. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that he does a good job of playing his role in this movie, although a role that seems like it should be bigger than what it is isn't really that big of a role. He does a damn good job, and he hams it up on the screen just like he normally would, and that's just what we expect from Malcolm McDowell at this point. It's Malcolm McDowell being Malcolm McDowell, and he does a great job at it. I enjoyed the premise and plot of this movie. I liked I love cat and mouse games, and I love a law enforcement officer versus serial killer. I love those types of movies. I have always enjoyed the police procedural movies like Seven and Silence of the Lambs. And I feel like that this movie has all of those elements there for the most part. And it was something that had me very intrigued throughout the movie for the most part. I think that the killer's design, and it's particularly his mask, is absolutely incredible. I love the mask on this killer. I feel like it is unique. I feel like it is something that we may have not seen before. It is something that just exudes this inhuman presence that once you see him in this mask, you know that there's no hope that he has you and he's going to kill you. There's no reasoning with him, and that you are just going to be another body in his wake. And it's something that I felt like they did a really good job of making it very, very unique, because we don't really see super unique mask anymore. It's usually some kind of Halloween mask or something that resembles just a regular person's face or something like that. This mask was just very, very, very unique to me. I really enjoyed that. And finally, I think it has some decent kills, although nothing to really write home about. I feel like that they are all pretty realistic kills. This isn't anything on like a Terrifier level or nothing like that. And I know that that's something that I will always preference, is it's not on Terrifier's level, but in a sense that these kills aren't just super over the top. They are just stuff that would happen in real life. Like it's the way that a real life serial killer would actually kill his victims. They kind of put that on display here, and it was something that I did appreciate. It's not too flashy, but it's something that actually fit this world that we were in. Moving on to the mix section, and this might be the biggest mix section that I have done the entire time that I've been reviewing movies on here. I think that the overall end game of the killer, his main goal at the end, I liked it and I thought that it was unique. The problem is it got way too big for the movie, in a sense that he had a really good idea in his motivations and in his beliefs, and it was something that it just got to a point where it was on such a large scale that I don't think that the movie did enough legwork to realize this vision, or to have this killer realize this vision, because this movie really starts out as the killer is going across country committing all these murders, and then eventually you find out through happenstance, really at the end, which is one of the negatives, of what his main overall goal is. And that goal is not only way bigger than what he's done before, it is almost so big that it is like supervillain big, like mustache twirly big. Like it was something I liked. That I liked that it was super unique, but it was just too big for the movie. One of the things that I thought was very unique but did not get fleshed out properly and didn't get executed properly was the mystery of this killer and his motivations. His end game and everything is kind of put on full display in the background, like through podcasts and interviews that Jane Archer is listening to while she is pursuing him. And if you don't pay attention to it, it will be lost on you. And that was something that I felt like if they would have executed that better and would have fleshed it out more and made it more in a procedural manner, I think that would have been an absolutely incredible way to do this. But I don't think that they did a good enough job for it to have an impact at all. So by the end of the movie, you're like, what the fuck is going on? It's not necessarily confusing because it does click into place, but it feels a little bit random because if you're not paying attention, you won't catch it at all. You have all this stuff going on where you don't know if it's connected or not. You just think it's like background noise. And when the end finally comes, it's like, so all that stuff that we were hearing just nonchalantly in the background through her earpiece when she's listening to this stuff while she's pursuing him, all that stuff really did matter, and all that stuff had impact on the movie. So it's like, why did they do it that way instead of fleshing out more, like having her watch these interviews or watch these podcasts, draw those conclusions together? Because I don't feel like that through the entire movie that Jane Archer was really doing enough legwork, at least on screen, for us to see in order for her to actually pursue this guy effectively. And that's why I put it in the mix section, because I do like the device in which they're trying to do this with. I just really wanted it to be executed more because it didn't work. It didn't work because it wasn't fleshed out, because it didn't go into more detail, because it wasn't delivered properly. And finally, this is also in the mix section, is the tension in this movie, at least for the first 45 minutes, is there. It's there. It kind of, you do have this looming sense of dread, and then that dread slowly kind of gets broken and the tension kind of just peters out towards the end. Even in the end game of the movie, where something is big is about to happen, you don't really feel that tense. You kind of can see what's going to happen and how it's going to play out. And that's something that was kind of disappointing coming from the guy who wrote Seven, where you are literally on the edge of your seat the entire time you were watching that movie. It just didn't have that same effect for me. Now, I'm not comparing it to Seven, because if you're comparing anything to Seven, you're going to be disappointed no matter what. But I just expected more tension out of that writer. It's there, but it's just not as effective as I wanted it to be. And moving on to my negatives, this script is allegedly 20 years old. And when they dusted this script off and made a movie, it doesn't feel like they revamped it at all. Now, for people like me who love nostalgia, I would have loved it to be that throwback to that 90s police procedural type horror film, which is why Longlegs was so effective for me and why I liked Longlegs so much. Unfortunately, they didn't revamp it and like spice the script up a little bit, so it feels very generic. It feels like we've seen this movie 100 times now at this point. And that was something that really affected the movie. And I know a lot of people might be giving that a pass because they love that nostalgia hit that you get. And I'm one of those that loves that too. But they really needed that script to get revamped, because it definitely shows that they just dusted it off and put it in. And it didn't work for me. And alongside that, this movie is definitely a hatchet job. The editing in this movie is very clear that there are stuff that is left out that would have fleshed out the story more. And one of my biggest complaints is that I needed the movie to be longer, because I needed more information. I needed more background on the killer. I needed more detective work from Archer. I needed all that stuff. I needed more stuff than what we got. And it has to be because they edited out a bunch of stuff that would have helped this story along better. And I don't know why they did that, because nobody has a problem making a 3-hour movie anymore, or a 2.5-hour movie. Not that I wanted this movie to be that long, but this movie would have been fine at 2 hours. It could have used that extra 30 minutes to flesh out this story more. And I can't help but to think that they cut out a bunch of stuff in here to make that runtime shorter and to, quote, make it more digestible. But it backfired. It did not work. It just makes the movie feel very rushed and incomplete. And this is a very minor negative, but at the beginning of the movie, you hear this killer's voice. And it is a very imposing, very deep voice like this. And I did not mind it at first. I thought it was like, okay, this guy's a straight up fucking villain. Like, I didn't mind it at all. But as the movie goes and the dialogue you get from the killer, it becomes very corny and very cheesy. It gets to a point where he asks the same question 3 times, and it just sounds ridiculous all 3 times that he asks it to a specific individual in this movie. And it ends up grating on your nerves more than it feels opposing or unique. And finally, the ending of the movie. Like I said before, the end game of this killer I thought was very unique, even though I feel like it got a little too big for this movie. The very, very end of the movie, when everything is all said and done, the final few scenes of the movie is where it completely lost me. Because as I said before, my mix section, throughout this movie, there's stuff going on in the background that you can hear, and if you're not paying attention, it's going to be lost on you by the end. And even though it's only mentioned like a couple of times in passing through these podcasts and these interviews and stuff, they go full head on into some of those concepts, and it just feels like it comes out of nowhere, and it feels super random because it did not get fleshed out properly. And the very end of this movie, I was like, what in the fuck are they doing? What is going on? It just felt very random until you sit down and you think about everything that was going on in the background. You was like, oh, well, they talked about this briefly, but it's like, here you go. Here's Idea 57 that they were talking about in podcast A in the background. And it did not work for me whatsoever. So, as I said at the beginning of this video, this was my most anticipated movie of the year. In fact, me and one of my friends were talking the other day, it's like, dude, this movie's got to be good. This movie's going to be great. And unfortunately, like I said, it did not live up to that hype. I did not hate this film. I didn't think it was one of the worst of the year so far or anything, by no means whatsoever. And I'm sure I will see a lot worse films than this throughout the rest of the year. But to say that I'm disappointed is an understatement. They had such a cool concept going on here, and they had so many things that could have came out of this. The satanic slasher could have become a modern horror icon, and I know some people are going to say that I'm ridiculous when I say that, but he is a cool killer, and his mask is badass, and I thought that he had a lot of potential. And you got Georgina Campbell, who I think she deserved better. She deserved to have her role fleshed out so much better. So overall, this movie was a disappointment, but I didn't hate it. So with all that being said, Psycho Killer gets a 3.5 out of 5. If you like movies like Seven and Silence of the Lambs, I think you'll enjoy this movie, but I do think you're going to feel like me where you're like, this should have been so much better than what it was. So for this video, thank you all so much for your continued support and patience. Without y'all, this channel isn't possible. And if you like this video, like it. And if you like it enough, please head over to the channel, hit the subscribe and bell button so you never miss a video. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so you can get channel updates, movie news, and all forms of badassery. If you click right here, you'll get my review on Cold Storage. And if you click right here, you'll get access to all my other Grizzly Grade reviews. So until next time, remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.